They told me the sublevel would be empty. That was the word the project manager used. Empty. Like he wanted to make sure I understood before I signed anything. No staff, no patrons, no reason for anyone to be down there while I worked. 3 nights of rewiring junction panels along the Eastern Service Corridor, and I'd never seen another person. He'd said it like it was a selling point. I should have heard it for what it was. My name's Mia Voss. I've been pulling wire for 11 years, 10 of them freelance. I've worked in hospitals after midnight. I've rewired circuit panels in cold storage warehouses, where the lights were on timers I couldn't control. I'm not someone who gets nervous in dark buildings. That's not who I am. Or, it wasn't. The Mega Pizzaplex job came through a contracting portal I'd check a few times a week. Electrical work, sub-level maintenance corridor, 3 overnights, competitive pay. The client was listed as Fazbear Entertainment, Property Services Division. I filled out the intake form. 2 days later, a man named Hendricks called me. He spoke in the careful, over-enunciated way of someone reading from a script, one that they'd been told not to deviate from. 3 panels, Eastern Corridor, overnight access, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. You'll have full access to the Eastern Maintenance Corridor, he said. You shouldn't encounter any operational systems. I asked what he meant by operational systems. There was a pause. Not long, maybe 2 seconds, but had the quality of someone scrolling to find the right line. The entertainment equipment runs on a separate schedule, he said. It won't interfere with your work. He emailed me a badge, not a name badge, just a number, 0717. I asked if there had been a mistake with the name field. That's standard for subcontract personnel. The system tracks by number. It's easier for everyone. I asked, easier for everyone how? Is there anything else I can help you with, Miss Voss? I said no. He hung up. I printed the badge and didn't think about it again. The first night, I parked in a garage so big my truck looked like a toy left on an airport runway. The security door on the north side had been left unlocked, just like Hendricks described. No guard, no sign-in sheet, just a door in a hallway and a set of stairs going down. The sublevel was massive. Corridors stretched in both directions and curved just enough that you couldn't see where they terminated. The ceiling was low, maybe 7.5 feet, lined with conduit runs and cable trays that hadn't been labeled in years. The floor was polished concrete, scuffed in patterns that suggested heavy, repetitive traffic. Not foot traffic. Something wider. Something on wheels, maybe. Or tracks. There was a smell, too. Faint. Underneath the concrete dust and recycled air. Something almost sweet. Like old silicone and machine oil, but warmer than it should have been. I found the first junction panel easily enough. EJSC-04. 20-year-old copper that someone spec'd for half the load it was carrying. They opened it up and got to work. At one point, I stepped back to stretch and noticed markings on the far wall. Colored stripes. About 60 feet deeper into the corridor. Yellow, maybe. Just paint. Just facility coding. Every big building has a system. Around 1 a.m., I walked the corridor to find the restroom Hendricks had mentioned. I found it, but I also found something else. A utility closet just past the restroom, unlocked, door slightly open. Standard maintenance supplies on the shelves, but on the bottom shelf, pushed to the back, there was a canvas tool bag, personal. The kind you pick up at a surplus store and use until the stitching gives out. Inside were wire strippers, a voltage tester, a spool of 12-gauge Romex, and a half-eaten granola bar in a wrapper that hadn't expired yet. Someone had been down here. Recently. Someone with my exact job description. I zipped the bag closed and put it back. I told myself there were 100 explanations. That's what I told myself. And I was almost right, in the way that almost is the most dangerous word in the English language. I finished the first panel by 3:40 a.m., packed my tools, climbed the stairs, and stepped into the garage. The air outside tasted like concrete dust and car exhaust, and I remember thinking that was the freshest air I'd ever breathed. Night 2. Same garage, same door, same stairs, but this time the overhead lights in the first section of the corridor were dimmer, not flickering, just running at about 60%. The ballast was fine. It was as if someone had adjusted a dimmer somewhere, dialing the whole corridor down, just enough that you'd feel it before you see it. I headed deeper east, toward the second panel, EJSC 07. The yellow stripe I'd glimpsed the night before was part of a sequence. Yellow, then red, then yellow again, painted deliberately at the exact same height on both walls. A system I didn't really understand, and that wasn't on any of Hendrix's documentation. I opened the panel. The interior was wrong. Not damaged, not degraded. Wrong. Someone had already started the rewiring. The old copper was half pulled, and new runs had been started. The same gauge I was using, the same routing pattern I'd mapped out in my notes. The work was clean, methodical, exactly the way I would have done it if I had gotten here first. I called Hendrix. The number rang once and went to a recording, a woman's voice, very calm, thanking me for calling Fazbear Entertainment Property Services. There was no tone. The line just went dead. I went back to check the utility closet. The canvas tool bag was gone. The shelf where it had been sitting was clean, like it had been wiped down. That's when I noticed the sound. It came from deep in the corridor, rhythmic, a low rolling hum, undercut by something heavier, something with weight and friction, like something very large was moving along a fixed path. I turned off my headlamp. Instinct, maybe. The kind your body makes before your brain has time to argue. The sound grew closer. I could feel it in the floor, a faint vibration that came up through the soles of my boots and settled in my knees. The sweet smell thickened, warmer, closer, almost organic, almost alive. I pressed my back against the wall and held my breath. Not out of fear, exactly. Out of the irrational certainty that whatever was moving through that corridor was navigating by sound. The vibration peaked, close enough to hear individual components, servos, gears, a faint whine like a capacitor under load. And beneath all of it, barely audible, something that might have been music. A melody I almost recognized, played at a pitch that made it feel like a memory that I never actually had. Then, it stopped. Not faded. Stopped. Like a switch had been thrown. Then the sound reversed, growing fainter at the same rate, retreating back the way it had come until the corridor swallowed it, and there was nothing left but my own breathing, which I realized had gone shallow and fast without my permission. I left early that night. Sat in my truck for 40 minutes with the engine running and the headlights pointed at the security door, watching. Nothing came through it, but I watched anyway, because my body wouldn't let me stop. I didn't go back the next night. I went during the day. The Pizzaplex from the outside looked like what it was, a massive, aggressively cheerful entertainment complex. I walked in like a customer and watched the animatronics perform on a stage across the dining floor. One of them, a bear, purple bow tie, glossy plastic shell, turned its head during a song and looked directly at the section of floor where I was standing. Its eyes didn't track the way a camera tracks. They settled, like a person recognizing someone across a room. It held for maybe 2 seconds, then turned back. Nobody else noticed. I found a manager. Name tag said Dale. Clean-shaven, trained smile. I told him I was a contractor working in the sublevel. He listened. Every answer he gave me was reasonable. Every answer was complete, and not a single one connected to any other. He was answering each question as if it existed in isolation, as if none of them were part of the same building. I asked if the sublevel had any active mechanical systems running overnight, anything on tracks or rails. Dale paused, just long enough for me to notice. The entertainment systems have overnight maintenance cycles, he said. Diagnostics, calibration, it's all automated. In the sublevel, the service corridors connect different parts of the facility. Some of the diagnostic routes do run through those areas. He said it the way you'd describe a bus route. If you see anything, just give it space. They're on a fixed path. They won't deviate. I asked what he meant by anything. Dale smiled again. The same smile, exactly the same one. Like he'd reset. Is there anything else I can help you with, Miss Voss? It was the same sentence Hendricks had used to end our call. Word for word, same cadence. I went back that night. Dale's words had given me a framework that made the sound from night 2 into something ordinary. Diagnostic routes, maintenance cycles. He hadn't been evasive. He'd been corporate. There's a difference. At least, there's supposed to be. Night 3. I finished EJSC 07 by midnight. Most of the work had already been done, though I couldn't explain by whom. The third panel, EJSC 11, was deeper into the corridor, past the red and yellow markings, in a section where the shadows between the overhead lights were thick enough to feel like rooms. The sweet smell was stronger here. It had a thickness to it, like humidity clinging to the inside of my throat. The panel was behind a cage door. The cage was unlocked. Inside, mounted on the wall beside the junction box, was a clipboard. A sign-in log. Name, date, scope of work, badge number. 14 entries. The oldest was from 9 years ago. The newest was from 6 weeks before I arrived. Every single entry described the same job. Junction panels, Eastern Corridor, 3-night scope. Every badge number was 4 digits, starting with 0. None of the entries had a sign outline. The column existed, completion date, but it was blank on every row. 14 contractors had started this job. None of them had ever finished it. But that wasn't the thing that made my hand shake. That wasn't the thing that made the clipboard rattle against the cage wall when my grip failed. The thing that did it was the handwriting. 3 of the entries, 3 different names, 3 different dates spanning 5 years. But the handwriting was identical. And it was mine. Not similar, not close. Mine. The way I loop my M's, the way I cross my 7s with a little horizontal bar that my father taught me when I was 8 years old. The slight leftward slant I've never been able to correct. 3 strangers, spread across half a decade, writing in a hand I've known my entire life. I opened the junction panel. I did the work. Maybe because the alternative was to think about what I'd just seen. Maybe because that's what every name on the list had done. Found the clipboard, read it, and picked up their tools because the job was the only thing that still made sense. The panel was already half-wired. Same gauge, same routing, same hands. I finished it in 2 hours. When I was done, I started walking west, back toward the stairwell. Fast. Not running. I'm a professional. I don't run. But fast enough that my tool bag was swinging against my leg with every stride. I smelled it before I saw it. That sweet, warm smell. Except it wasn't faint anymore. It was thick. Close. Like walking into a wall of heated air in a space that should have been cold. I came around the curve when the corridor straightened out toward the stairwell, and I stopped. It was standing in the middle of the hall. 60 feet from me, maybe less, directly between me and the only way out. It was big, taller than a person. The proportions were wrong in ways that my brain kept trying to correct and failing. The torso too broad, the limbs slightly too long. The surface wasn't skin. It wasn't metal either. A shell, smooth in some places, segmented in others, with a faint sheen that caught my headlamp in a color that I want to call purple, but that's not exactly right. It was the color of a bruise that's almost healed. The jaw was open, not wide, just slightly, like it had been about to speak, and the thought had left it. I stood completely still. heartbeat in my ears, and the things idling were. Those were the only two sounds in the corridor. 5 minutes, my knees ached from the tension. The sweet smell was so thick I could taste it. My headlamp had been pointed directly at it this whole time, and it hadn't reacted at all. Whatever it was doing, my presence wasn't part of the calculation. Then, something changed. A click from deep inside its chest, and a series of smaller clicks, like tumblers falling in a lock. The head straightened. The jaw closed with a soft pneumatic hiss. And then, it moved. It didn't turn around. It walked forward, toward me, but not at me. It drifted to the right, following a path I couldn't see. It passed within 15 feet of me. The footsteps were heavy and even, and as it passed, I heard the melody again. A lullaby, maybe. A jingle. Something designed to be comforting, played from a speaker in its chest. So quiet it was almost subliminal. It walked past me and continued east, deeper into the corridor I'd just come from. Its footsteps faded. The whir faded. The smell lingered, then faded too. I walked to the stairwell on legs that barely worked, pushed through the security door. The cold night air hit my face, and something in my chest released so violently that I bent over with my hands on my knees and breathed in stuttering gasps until my vision cleared. I drove home with every window down. The next morning, I called Hendrix to confirm completion. The line didn't connect. No ringing, no tone, no error message. Just flat, open silence, like calling a number that had never existed. I logged into the contracting portal. The job listing was gone, not archived, gone. My submission, my intake form, my signed scope of work, all of it. I searched my email. The threads were there, time-stamped, with subject lines I recognized. But when I opened them, the bodies were empty. No text, no attachments, just white space where words used to be. I checked my bank account. The deposit was there, the full amount, paid in advance, before I'd even been to the building, before I'd done any work at all, before Hendrix had even called me. I'd been paid before the job even existed. I drove back to the Pizzaplex. The security door was sealed, a metal plate bolted over the handle, and a sticker that read, Fazbear Entertainment, no subcontract access, Property Services Division. My badge returned nothing on the RFID reader. I held it under my phone's NFC reader at home, a blank chip, like the building had taken one last look at my credentials and decided I was done. That was 4 months ago. I've done 7 jobs since then. I sleep fine. I eat fine. Nothing about my life has changed, except for one thing. I can't find the Pizzaplex. I've driven to where it should be 3 times. The address pulls up on maps. The pin drops in the right place. But when I get there, the building's behind fencing with a sign that says, Fazbear Entertainment, property under renovation, no public access. The garage entrance is walled off. The security doors are gone, replaced by flat concrete that looks like it's been there for decades. I've searched for the 14 names from the clipboard. Every one. Contractor databases, social media, state licensing boards. None of them exist. No records. No licenses. No proof they were ever real. I went back that night. And last week, I searched for myself, just to be safe. My contracting license is still active. My address is current. My bank account is real. But my intake form for the Pizzaplex job lists a name that I don't recognize, a woman I've never heard of, and the badge number attached to her profile. And it was mine. It's 0717. I check the mirror every morning now. Same face, same hands, same leftward slant when I write my name. Everything is exactly where it should be. They told me the sublevel would be empty, and it was. I just didn't understand what empty meant.